Well, it's 2015. I have a new Sony Handycam to bring in this year. This is actually one of the higher end Digital8 models to come from Sony, as the Digital8 format was reaching its peak in popularity. This is a Sony DCR-TRV730, and this was one of those as-is untested deals on eBay. That seems to be the only way to get a Sony Handycam for a decent price that's not out of this world expensive, at least nowadays, is to just go around on eBay and look around for finding one that's as is. It's usually untested, and while you are most likely taking a shot in the dark, most if not all the times I've done so, it's paid off and the camcorder works flawlessly. Usually it's just a problem with people not knowing how to test or use these things, and so they just throw them up on eBay and they don't want to deal with the hassle of people trying to return them if they don't work. So yes, it's taking a shot in the dark, and yes, it's an associated risk, but it's a risk that I happen to be willing to take, and it paid off for this camcorder. Stupid ads as soon as I start trying to record a video. Come on, really? Now right off the bat, you probably already noticed this very big megapixel CCD. This has a 1/4 inch CCD in it. It's very large and very high quality. In fact, it's the same CCD image sensor that is being used in this Sony mini DV camcorder I'm using. So when I switch from this camera to this one, the quality shouldn't be that much different because it's using the exact same image sensor as this camcorder. And it has the customary Sony stamina sticker. You get 7 hours of battery life if you use their highest capacity battery, or at least the one that they list here, but you have to have your LCD screen turned off and use just the viewfinder. So you definitely get more battery life using a high 8 camcorder, but then it's a bit more difficult to transfer into the computer. So again, it's a trade-off you have to be willing to make with these Digital8 model camcorders. You have an auto and manual focus switch here, and when you switch this to manual operation, you control the focus much the same way as you would an SLR or DSLR, using a focus ring here. A very nice feature, just like on this mini DV camcorder. It's a lot easier to use than having a little diopter control that you have to scroll up and down. This makes for much smoother focusing. Your fader and backlight controls are located in the front of the unit on these two buttons. We have a volume control here, and behind these two rubber flaps are various ports and connections. Behind this port we have an S-video and AV jack. The AV jack also doubles as an AV input because this camcorder is of a type that allows you to act as a capture card of sorts. You can plug in anything into this AV jack and then it will stream it digitally over firewire. And behind this door we have the USB jack for USB streaming, and I would assume connection of the memory stick slot, although I don't know if you can actually access the memory stick slot via the USB jack. You have your 4-pin firewire connection and an LANC jack, which you can use an external remote control with. And this does have night shot as well as super night shot. Super night shot just opens up the shutter all the way, and so you really have to use this on a tripod, otherwise it starts getting very blurry and smeary. But if you can't otherwise see anything, even with night shot turned on, super night shot will most likely remedy the situation. You've got your basic tape transport controls here. These pads tend to wear out very easily. I've seen many of these on eBay where the camcorder works, but this pad doesn't work, and so you have to use some kind of an external remote control to access the tape transport controls. But fortunately these still work. There are record buttons here because you can also use this as the digital VCR. You can record through its AV jacks to the tape. You have super laser link, so you get a bit more range out of this unit than you would with regular laser link. Fortunately the lens cap came with this camera, so I don't have to hunt around on eBay and pay some kind of exorbitant price for it. People want 20 bucks for these things, which is out of this world. We have an 18x optical zoom, a stereo microphone, some logos and things here, and then behind this black piece of plastic, if we switch on night shot here, you'll be able to see the super laser link and night shot infrared emitter, and this also has a remote sensor as well. You can use this with an external remote control. This has a stereo 3.5mm headphone and microphone jack. The microphone jack also supplies plug-in power, so you can use this with those microphones that won't otherwise work unless they have power supplied from the microphone jack. And this also has an active interface shoe, which is some kind of a proprietary connection that Sony engineered, but you can use it just like a regular cold shoe and hook up a regular microphone or camera light or anything up to it. But if you do have one of those Sony accessories that use the active interface shoe connection, when you put it on, it'll push this plastic tab away and you'll be able to have access to those connections. And like later models of these Digital8 camcorders, this doesn't have a window, so you can't see through to your tape. Your zoom control, your photo control, which takes photos to the memory stick and not the tape, your memory stick slot, your exposure control, and then your diopter control, which you can use for getting through the various menus and controls in this camera. Your record start and stop and your function control, you have camera, memory, VCR, and off, and conveniently they put a little plastic notch here, so if you don't want to keep switching this thing inadvertently to the memory stick mode, you put that little plastic thing out and then it will just only go into the tape mode. And yes, this does take info-lithium M batteries, so they're not nearly as hard to find as the L series batteries. And immediately you probably notice the LCD screen is disproportionately small compared to this plastic swing out display. They could have made it a lot larger and that would have been a nice feature, especially for such a high-end Digital8 camcorder such as this one. You have edit search, your controls for your memory stick card, playback zoom, titler, menu, display, end search, and a few other functions. And we also have a reset button in case this decides to not cooperate and you have to reset it. The LCD screen does flip all the way around and you can fold it in, although because of it being on an angle, the way they engineered it, kind of feels a bit flimsy. I wouldn't really trust leaving it like this because it feels like you're putting quite a large amount of undue stress on the hinge itself, so I'd probably leave it that way if I'm not using it. The tape loads from the bottom of the unit, so let me grab a Hi8 tape and we will commence our video test of this camcorder. Oh yes, and one last thing, I'm looking into the mechanism here, and I did do a very quick preliminary test, and I didn't see or hear anything rattling around in here, which is always a good sign. That Hi8 camcorder I got a while back had a bunch of pieces of the tape drive mechanism and cap stand were rattling around and were broken in there, so let's go ahead and do our test now. Okay, something's definitely wrong with the info-lithium battery that this camera came with. Again, it's the NPFM50. I just started recording and then it flashed the low battery indicator and shut the whole camcorder off, so I guess something's wrong with that. Maybe it's dead. I'm not really sure. And here's my iPod G4, which I'll be using to edit this video very shortly, using iMovie 06. It's hard drive season. Got a bunch of these hard drives lying around, and I just upgraded the one on my ThinkPad from a 160GB Western Digital Scorpio Blue, same as this one, to a 250GB drive, so I have a little bit more space now to save things on. And here are some cheap Skullcandy headphones that I got for next to nothing, but for good reason. They sound absolutely terrible. And here's what's providing the musical backdrop for today's video. An ancient iPod Touch, which has some kind of old version of Pandora on it, which still works. That's always nice. And I've got a new DVD player here, which I'm considering using for my live show activities. It's actually an LG Blu-ray player, but it has a composite output, so I can just hook this straight into my AV switcher and use this, because my older LG DVD player is one of those micro systems which were very small, but it just stopped working. It progressed into where it didn't want to read any discs, and then it just stopped altogether reading them, and it wouldn't load them. It just kept giving disk errors. So I'm not all too sure. This is a pretty nice system, actually. It has Dolby True HD, Digital Plus, DTS HD Master Audio, HDMI output, 1080p, AVC HD, DivX HD playback, although I really don't know how well that's going to work. And it even has a USB jack, so I don't need to burn DVDs. If I get the codec and format right, I could just hook up a flash drive to this and play it straight from there. And here's that Regency informant police scanner, which has been sitting here unused for the last 3 weeks, I'd say. I just haven't wanted to listen to the police frequencies, but I probably am going to turn it on and just see what's going on later tonight. And I had to change the light here because the one that used to be sitting over here was subject to an unfortunate mishap. It was a little too close to the edge. I pulled this table out to get to something, and it fell down and the glass dome shattered, and it was just a big nightmare. So I've had to switch lights now, but this one works fine. I even went to the trouble of putting one of those vintage Edison light bulbs in there just because it kind of matches. Although the color temperature from that clashes with that of the LED light which I use here, which has an annoying tendency to put an RF hum, and you can even hear it humming away. But if I shut the light off, you can see that the color temperature is much different and warmer compared to the LED light, which is better for YouTube videos though. But let's do our customary audio test before the battery runs out. And that's going to conclude our little test and demonstration of the Sony DCR-TRV730. Now, if only this iBook G4 would cooperate, I'll be able to edit this video successfully. And here is the tape that I recorded the test on from that camcorder. Of course, you may be wondering what this little excess portion of the video is about. I've got 1 minute of tape remaining, so I might as well use it up. And here's what happens when you go MIA for a month. Your computer battery dies. Thinks it's 2001. Wow.